Hi, Jennifer Campbell here, your online systemic leadership mentor. Today, it's time for the last step in the systemic change leadership journey, step number 9, which is all about anticipating on the future. In this video, you will learn about a systemic approach to anticipating on the future and how this will help you with change leadership success. Now, of course, in this step, as well as in all videos, I strongly pull from my own experience as a change manager and helping leaders like you increase their change leadership success with the people they lead. But part of the approach towards anticipating on the future that I'm sharing in this video also includes my learning from the conversations I had with Systemic Leadership Summit speakers such as Martin Galungubanda, Arwana Hayashi, and many others. Now, before I go into a couple of systemic steps and approaches that you can use, I do want to mention two things that anticipating on the future as it's meant here in the systemic change leadership journey, what it's not about. And number one, it's not about predicting the future based on analysis. Again, analysis is the reductionist and more linear approach towards the future. It's about painting scenarios based on the past mostly, and it's about the analysis process and the taking apart of what we think will be the future. And that's not what it's all about. It's also not about a linear strategy and scenario type of planning. It's not about, these are the possibilities that we foresee and what is the likelihood of one of them happening. Now, I'm not saying that these two ways of anticipating on the future should be just taken from the table and that you should only take a systemic approach. What I'm saying is that anticipating on the future in the systemic sense is not about analysis, and it's also not about scenario planning. Now, what are a couple of things that you can think about and use while anticipating the future the systemic way? Now, the first one is step number 1, ground yourself in the unknown. What is the big shift from the linear or strategy planning approach to the systemic approach? And that has to do with the increasing amount of change and complexity that we are facing in our organizations. And so it's very important to anticipate the future and lead the future and understand that you're doing this from a space of the unknown. You don't know. And so grounding yourself in the unknown and welcoming the situation in which you don't know is something that's going to give you that inner solidity that you need as a leader to really lead from the future and anticipate the future. So grounding yourself in the unknown and knowing that the unknown and the unpredictable are normal, then that is a great grounding to give yourself. The second step is about letting purpose pull instead of push. Now, what do I mean by that? When we're very goal-oriented, we're very much pushing towards a particular outcome or a particular state of the organization. Now, instead of pushing towards the goals, it's also possible to let the purpose, to let the thing that the organization was actually brought into existence to pull you forward. And it's such a different energy around leading and moving with your organization. So purpose as not just something to to have in your DNA, but also as the inner compass that sort of guides towards a situation or within a situation that's yet unknown, but that you can sense, is a very strong competency to also have in future anticipation. And it's not so, it's very subtle actually, but it's also a very strong force once you know, for example, when you know the inner north of the organization, then you'll be able to let that inner north pull the magnet that the organization is. Step number 3 is to let go, and this is a difficult one, but let go of wanting to control the future. So once you, and this is easier to do once you've done the first 2 steps, once you've grounded yourself in into the unknown and also let purpose pull the organization forward, then it's also important to let go of the old ways of dealing with the future and trying to control it. So by being less tight about this, it creates so much more space for the for leading from the future. Step number 4 in the future anticipation is about siding with the potential of the organization. And potential is something else than purpose. Purpose is why do we exist? And potential is about the unpacking of what is possible from the organization. And so that is slightly different. And what's very important is that you get a strong sense of how to see the potential of your organization. And this one is tied to one of the other steps that I'll be talking about in a minute. But understanding where are new things emerging, where are new possibilities opening up in the organization, and where are we slightly maybe, or sometimes in the bigger sense, breaking away from the old patterns. Where are the openings? And once you side with that, it's also possible to see what the future pulling from purpose and the potential and how they start a dance together, and where you can see what's possible for the organization. Evolutionary force in step number 5 is actually it's a concept and an energy in systemic phenomenological work that I learned from Jan Jacob Stam, the founder of the Bert Hellinger Institute in the Netherlands. And besides the linear approach to organizations where there's a lot of individuals, they have roles, they try to they adhere by a number of rules in terms of order, and there's hierarchy, and there is belonging. There's all these different things. And then there's a system as a whole that perpetuates patterns. And the third element that also exists is evolutionary force. And evolutionary force is like a big wind that blows and actually overrules everything and everyone. And you can actually decide to go with that. And a very good example is what we're experiencing with COVID-19, where we were just minding our own business, doing our daily things, some things planned and some things very systemic and following patterns and perpetuating patterns. And then in comes COVID-19 and it invites us to completely different things. And working with evolutionary force is like a big amplified version of step number 1, where you ground yourself in the unknown. Evolutionary force usually does have a direction, and it's a force because it's very hard to work against it. But if you work with it and see what is evolutionary force in inviting for our organization, or what does it want us to look at? And COVID-19 for many organizations is actually an invitation to see that things are ending, and that the old way of organizing, or the old way of doing business, or the old way of shaping our societies is no longer working, and that something else needs to happen. It's also a major slowing down because many people cannot perpetuate the patterns of work rhythms, of processes, of systems that were in place. Everything gets disrupted. And working with it instead of against it, and accepting the bigger waves of organization life, or life in general, will definitely help you to also see what is the future that is actually around us now. Step number 6, if you've done the steps 1 to 5, step number 6 is where you'll start to see things, where you'll start to see the future, where you'll start to see where purpose is glowing at the horizon, where potential is popping up, where possibilities and opportunities are. And it's about inviting others within your organization to see what you see. And what you'll usually find is that there are more people who see what you see, even though they don't sit where you sit. And this collective awareness bringing, this opening up of eyes, ears, hearts, and hands to what is emerging can be very contagious also. So inviting others to see what you see will also help the organization to embrace the future that is emerging. And step number 7 is go where the movement takes your organization. Because seeing what you see and evolutionary force, potential, and purpose will all create movement, will invite to the creation of new patterns. And sometimes a movement is very literally in your organization, where all of a sudden there are some people or departments or teams that pick up new patterns, or it starts with yourself, where you are picking up new patterns that you will be able to shape from your organization and take it to a different level or a different environment. And the system as a whole, your organizational system as a whole, also picks it up. So there's always almost this embodied, that's why I picked this picture also to support that. There's this embodied movement that you can see, especially also if you translate it into, for example, an organizational constellation, or if you do systems, social presencing theater, for example. Those are embodied methodologies where people in the space, or even online in the space, by the movement of where they sense future possibility, where they will actually move towards. And if you develop an eye for where the movement takes your organization, you'll definitely also be opening up yourself in terms of What does it mean for my leadership, and how can I prepare the rest of the organization in this movement towards future? So these are 7 steps that I wanted to share with you in this video about anticipating on the future and how to lead from the emerging future. Now, like I mentioned before in all videos, is that every aspect and every step that I shared with you is part of the bigger systemic change leadership journey, the framework that I use and people in my business use to help leaders like you increase their complex leadership success. Now, what's very important is that if you want to take your organization from surviving to thriving without wasting a lot of time, money, and energy on one-size-fits-all change management and leadership methods that really don't work, then this is an opportunity. This framework is an opportunity to take a different route and be more effective in the long run. So if you want to be crystal clear about the one thing that you should be doing now to anticipate on the future more within your organization, or if you want to learn more about the entire systemic change leadership journey as a framework and how that can help you with your change leadership success, then you can do so by clicking the link below and booking a complimentary call with me. And in the call, what we'll be doing is we'll look at your organization and see where you can apply and implement this process of anticipating the future. And what we'll also do is look at the entire systemic change leadership journey and see at the end of the call, what are the most important steps that you can use to work with in your organization. So I really look forward to speaking with you soon. Book a call by clicking the link below. For now, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching this video and the entire video series. Take care. Bye-bye.